So hi everyone, this is Mary Kurek and I am with Frontrunners Innovate magazine and also the BWE network. And so I co-host Spotlight with Jackie King on BWE network. And I am so pleased to have a friend and fellow influencer. I'd like to think I'm one too, but boy, you are in there, girl. I love it. Toyin Umesiri, and she is the founder and CEO of Nazaru. And when I first was attracted to Toyin, probably a year or two ago, I guess, I've been watching her for a while, and the influence and the work that she has been doing in creating trade situations between Africa and the United States and other places around the globe, pretty amazing. But what I really loved about her is that she comes from a corporate background in the US and Walmart particularly. And I'd love for you to start there, Toyin, with a little bit about your background, because we're going to pull it right into what drives you spiritually and what the impact that you're making now, because it goes way beyond what your job description says and the achievements that you have made in business world. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a delight. I always love, engaging with other women, other influencers. Yes, you are one. Um, and what just comes to my mind is just to say, first of all, I'm a mathematician. I got my first degree in mathematics. So I'm extremely logical and data driven in the decisions I make. I got my first degree in Nigeria. I'm originally from Africa, but I'm a US citizen now. So dual citizenship. But I came to the US in 2004 to pursue my graduate program. Graduate program was focused on information systems, and then I focused in SAP. SAP is a German software that is only used by the biggest brands in the world. So I specialized in deploying enterprise resource planning systems, ERP, that's what we called it. So in the corporate world, it was supporting like finance and controlling, manufacturing, production planning, quality management, on and on. And then I spent almost 7 years with Whirlpool Corporation, right out of graduate school. And then Walmart hired me out of Whirlpool to join their a new team they were starting. And they hired me to help deploy an SAP sourcing, global sourcing implementation. And that's really started my journey when it comes to global trade, really. So exposure to how Walmart buys, what it buys, the decision processes it goes through, internal and external, to buy from the rest of the world. So the systems and the backend that supports that infrastructure was what I helped lead and build and implement around the world. And then a couple of years ago, my dad passed. So I'm coming to the question in terms of what drives the work I do now. About 6 years ago, my dad passed. And that forced me to make a trip back to the continent. And that really changed my world. And I became more purpose driven, even though I've always been a woman of faith, all of that. But I got more clarity in terms of what I wanted to do and what type of impact I wanted to have in the world. So I had to reshape and shift the direction of my career and start building a new career. So right now, I've been able to build multiple platforms that supports international trade with Africa. And it all comes from that impact-driven mindset. Also faith-driven, because it's results-based, it's life-changing, it's economic development that actually impacts people at the bottom of the pyramid, as people try to say in economics.
Their life. You're
Yeah,
impacting them at their life, not just
yeah,
lifestyle, but just life.
exactly.
And the basics of life, for
Yes.
sure. This is going to be an odd question, but when you went back to the continent after your father passed away, what was there pivotal conversations you had with God that
Yeah.
what was the oh my God moment? I have to do something.
Oh yeah. I think it's like, what was
Sorry.
it? Was it the Paul, the Paul story of, the voice from heaven? Yeah. Mine was, I mean, it's so clear that God had it planned out. So it wasn't one thing, it was
It was
several
a
things.
series of things.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It was series of
I have to get
things.
anvils dropped on me, so I understand how you
Yeah,
feel.
it was a series of things. But so some of it had to do with, because I write, okay, I had the opportunity to write my dad's mini biography for the process, right? For the program, we call it program, like the ceremony. I wrote about my dad, and I didn't just do what other people did. I actually literally talked about his life, his faith, his professional life, his family life, and I told a huge picture about my father. But in order to pull that together, I had to interview people.
Oh.
Yeah. So I had to interview my mom, and she started telling stories I've never heard before. I started hearing what his co-workers had to say. I was like an outsider. It was just a weird process, because one of the phrases I came up with was, when my dad was alive, he was just my dad, but after he died, he became a great man in my eyes. So that was one of the experiences I had. Was when he died was when I realized, oh, wait a minute. I read other people's biography and great men and here and there. I actually came from a great man, but I never knew that. So through the lens of understanding how we live this life, his legacy, I was like, Toyin, what are you doing here? Like, you're not on the path to leave that type of legacy. You're just in corporate America doing the politics of the next pay, the next job. You're trying to move out the corporate ladder. And I'm very good with the corporate politics. I do it really well. Ah, I
Funny
do
how
it.
we women learn that really
Oh,
early.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know how to get my way. I know and I was already scheming. And it was this, duh, is that what you're just leaving for yourself? You know, Upper management, yes. American dream, yes. Then what? Right? So that was the me realizing, oh my goodness, the path I was on for corporate would sustain me financially, but it will not lead to greatness.
Did
That
you
was it.
know, yeah, when did you know that you could take the experience at Walmart and what you learned about supply
Hmm.
and the supply chain
Hmm.
and trade? When did
Hmm.
you know that you could use that as your impact?
So it was me yielding. I woke up one morning because I think those of us who write, we process things in our heads. Things come to us in
Yes.
different ways, right?
Yeah.
So I woke up one
Starts there.
morning. Yeah, I just woke up one morning. I was like, nobody becomes great serving an audience of one. Greatness comes out of using your skills and talent to serve people. So I was like, so it was yielding to that. I didn't have the answer, but I yielded to say, okay, I'm going to do something for people. Like, I'm going to make my life as to, but who are those people, and what am I going to do? You know, so it was. I think the first thing we need to do is to yield. We just need to yield and say yes. Then once we say yes, we then start that journey. So the journey for me then was research.
Mhm.
So it was like a puzzle. It was
Yes,
like,
that mathematician mind of yours.
yeah, it was like, okay, let's see.
I've
When
got
you
to
went to when you
numbers
went to
together.
Africa, yeah, what did you feel? Because at the same time, I was also experiencing something different, where I was coming from a community of great affluence. This is Fortune 1, headquarters of Fortune 1. People don't talk about money. Like, money is made and created. I'm coming from a community that knows how to take an idea and implement a product and distribute a product and serve the rest of the world. It's an engine. So there's no mindset of lack in that ecosystem. People create something out of nothing. They can sell you sand and water and make millions out of it. But I went to Africa, and the experience, I was like, why have you guys not moved past 10 years? Because at that time, I had been gone 10 years and never gone back. A decade had gone. So even when I went back, there was a lot of, I was like, I didn't know what I was experiencing, but I'm very aware. Whenever I'm somewhere, I'm observing, I'm taking it in. But when I got back is when I actually processed everything. So part of the processing was realizing, my goodness, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of you, there's energy, but it's not guided. Productivity, Walmart, why can't you sell to, like, this is how you make money, like, So I spent the next maybe 2 years research, talking to people, global leaders, and then people made connections. I was just asking questions. That's all I was doing for the first 2 years. Like, because I didn't have anything to prescribe at that time. I just got into the African affairs or economic development affairs conversation, and I started asking questions like, right? And then it was when you get that data and you start seeing trend, then I decided, okay, this is the current state. US only does 2% of its total trade with sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, what can I do to take that number up? That was it. That was my
Simple
problem
question.
statement. Yeah. What has to happen for these numbers to grow? Because if these numbers grows in the right direction, it will translate to opportunity for those people that are producing products. Now, here's the interesting thing, and Joyce Meyer said
Writing
this.
that down. Hang on a second. Get to that.
Yes,
Okay, go
yes,
ahead.
and it's the reason I put it at that is a lot of people do a lot of talking. Like one thing, because I still consider myself as an outsider because people have been in this space for 20, 30, 40 years, right? Um, what I realized quickly when I started engaging with people was there was a lot of conversation around Africa, particularly in Washington, D.C., but not enough transactions came out of it.
Enough action. Yeah.
Exactly. So I've always, so everything I do, the guiding principle is still, our goal is to drive people towards here. But along the journey, I've realized that even though I know what the promised land needs to look like, you have to carry people along.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the education, events, engagement, partnership, things I put in place together and the infrastructure I'm building is realizing that, wow, it actually takes, you have to coach people into that space. Because when I first came out, I was like, okay, I have the answer. I have the formula. A plus B equals to,
Yeah.
and I was like, trade with Africa. That's where that came from. Let's trade with Africa. I was like, trade, don't. I was like, no, who's following? And people were following, but when I engaged them, they didn't have the skills. They didn't have the skills. They were interested and they're like, Toyin, we think we understand what you're saying. But now the work I'm doing now is more hands-on. So we still do the public engagement, but we do more of hands-on because um
Are you
it's,
training people? Is that
oh
what you
yeah,
do? Mindset shifting? Is that
everything.
part of it or is that the primary part of it?
Well, what we've done is we've developed pillars of our work, but we have a public facing, so we do a lot of public work like events, stakeholder engagement, all of that. But outside of that, I actually have personal membership based group. So group coaching. In fact, this morning was I also have a monthly meeting. Like we have 3 major engagements. So this morning was one of those engagements where people bring their questions, um, and then I help guide them, which I don't do publicly.
What kind of person comes to the coaching table with you?
Okay, so, so it's, yeah. Part of one of the programs I developed was called it's called the Trade and Investment Facilitation Masterclass. And one of the things I actually teach people is that you're going to encounter different types of stakeholders wanting different types of things along the journey, which is one of the first few things I have to tell people. Like you have to really listen well because people coming at you, they're coming for different reasons. So for me, I don't go with this is my prescription. I don't do that. I usually wait and say, okay, what do you want? How can I help? Let's talk through it. And it's a lot of there's a lot of diversity in that landscape. So depending on who shows up, what they need might be, and I'm sure you see this as well with your community, is that um people are at different maturity stages.
Yeah, exactly.
um People want different things.
Some need a little more hand holding or coaching, and others are
If
further along and they need something else from you.
Yes,
They,
and
they need more hands on. Give me this, because we do connections. That's pretty much
yeah,
what we do. in business development. And so some are just ready for that, and some need to be coached into how to deal with that when it shows up, or how to do
Yes.
it themselves. Because,
Yes.
it can't all be on our shoulders. We can do some of it, but we need you to understand, how best to do this for your own business so that you're not reliant always on somebody else to do it.
Yes. And
So,
one thing I've also created is that people, being an entrepreneur is a journey. You might have some questions now, you might have some next week, you might have some. So those members of my community, the private coaching, every month they know they have a place they can go to. Like this morning, like someone is working on their labels and I'm helping, it's because my background is really supply chain logistics, like I'm more hands-on. Everything else that I've had to do is to provide platforms where we can have the serious engagement and get people thinking in the right direction. But at the end of the day, what I do behind the scenes with my lipsticks, my lipstick that is on Amazon, or my skincare, that's really where the bulk of the work is. And people who are not really ready to do that work. And that's what it takes. It's
yes.
it's it's roll up your sleeves. It's figuring out shipping cost and pricing models. Like today, I had to coach her into success. There are other members that have taken, they've gone from zero to exporting to US. But we do that privately, because you don't want to see.
Individualized.
Yeah, it's a lot of, you can see what I'm it's a lot of like
Yeah.
it's not the towing you see out there. It's actually the towing, the strategies, towing the technologies, towing the, let's figure out the supply chain. Today it's like distribution channel. These are the three options you have. Do you want a distributor? Do you want contract manufacturing? Do you like, I'm like, you have to pick.
Yeah.
And I cannot be that out there. So it's the solution, and on the dirty work of building a commercial business. Those are the things I offer to my private group, you know and not everybody's ready to do the work.
It is a lot of work. And I think even if they think they're ready, they're not ready
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes.
So before we kind of get close to the end, I want to talk to you about your women's empowerment sort of movement that you've been,
Oh,
the 360 platform that you've kind of created. I love the little video that you sent me. Thank you for that. It's sort of an all-encompassing. If there's anybody that can teach something like that, it's you, because you have so many things on your plate. And you're so good about understanding what your time is like and how to allocate certain time for your personal self as well as your business self. I wanted you to speak to that. So tell us a little bit, because this goes back to your Walmart day. You actually, you did some
yes,
things there. So
yes. And so when I was with Walmart, so I think for me, I've always been a little bit more logical about how I live life, because I feel like many of us have to stumble into things as women, as moms, as wives. And I go to myself, I cannot be the first person that is having to have a baby, or because women, we don't talk to, we don't share enough. We can do more of sharing. And I think if we share more, we're actually helping the next generation to live a better life. If we are able to say, I did this well, I didn't do this well. If I had the
why
opportunity
I
to do
mentor.
it
Yeah.
over, yeah, I'll do it differently. So for myself, being an immigrant without a support system in America, and I lived in upper middle class in Africa, so I well off family, and coming into America, I was like, I have a desire to make my life, my faith practical. Like, I want God to show up in my life. I want to live a life that is not just textbook. I want to see God move. I want to see what he can do in my world. Like, so my 360 woman came out of looking for a way to describe what I do for myself. So I never knew I was going to be sharing the information with other people. I was just looking for resources for myself. That's all. Like I said, I usually say that I don't, Mary, I don't want somebody else's life. I just
Yep.
want to live my own really well. Like I'm not, I don't want to be anybody. I love me, my God. So I just want to take it to the next level as best as I can. So that's been my own personal journey. But in the last 1-2 years, I felt in my heart that I needed to start sharing that framework with other women. And the framework is really this, that it's not work or life that we have to balance.
Yes.
It's that in him I live, I move, and find my being. At my core, it's me and God. Everything else that I do outside of that, it's my daughter. One paper. She wants my print. I put printing papers there, and they're like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gone. So yeah, so it's not um it's not work or life. It's that in him, in Christ, I live, I move, and have my being. That's scripture. So I'm in Christ, and Christ even says it. He is in God, we are in him. So that's my life. Now everything else that I have to do comes out of it. It's an expression of my faith. My work is an expression of my faith. How my relationship with my spouse comes out of, you know, an expression of my faith. My relationship with my kids, or my responsibility as a mom, comes out of my understanding of God. So that's where that came from, that me and Christ, me, God, we're in the center. Everything that I do comes from that core. So it's not, and the other thing is that work is just a slice of the pie for me. It's not, it doesn't, it's an expression of my faith, because God can decide to use us in a different way next year.
Yeah.
So that's how I've always been. And I think it's also helped me to be able to walk away from corporate, knowing that, hey, I sign up to be an employee of Jesus. Okay.
I love it.
Yeah, like even when I was in corporate, I saw my job as an expression of my faith. Like I always showed up faithfully, believing it's an opportunity God created for me. Right. So if God doesn't want me there, he wants me somewhere else, and I'm good to go. So if he wants me to work on something else next year, and this also then ties to how I handle my brands, my personal brands. Because of this understanding, I don't get myself too wrapped up in my identity is not wrapped up in my work. And when I release something new into the marketplace, I give it a life of itself. So Nazaru can have its own life and run. I can employ people and it can run. Trade with Africa Business Summit has its own different identity. The network has its identity. My beauty brand has its own identity. And the reason I do that is because I look at it through the lens of scriptures that says bear fruit and multiply. So they are the fruits of my work, right? And we can do more. God would prune us, and there's more. And who knows what next year is Nazaru TV. So I don't know what's going to come next year.
You're just listening. You're the
Exactly.
vehicle. I like that.
Exactly.
So many people talk about their personal, and this is something that's come to me too, personal life and work life. There's no differential there. It's all part of your package. And if you know who you are in Christ, then you know what you're all about. It's
Yes.
just that. So it's simple, and yet it's as simple and complicated as that, I guess, is to say. And some people would probably take it as complicated, because I think people try to segment out their lives and put boundaries around different sections. And I think the only boundaries you can do is like boundaries around your own time frame, so that you know what energies you have to give to yourself and your family and your friends, and to do God's work. So
Yeah.
that's, you just have to protect that to the best of your ability. And I don't think God would ask more of you than what you could possibly do in a 24-hour period.
Right, right. But
And so I
yeah.
just find myself, when I get to in my own head, and I just came back from a beach walk, and that's my best way of kind of letting it go, is just sit still and go, I'm just resting in God's grace right now. Letting all this chatter just go away, so that I cannot be in the future or the past. I can just be in the present right now, and just enjoy. So
Wow, that's beautiful. In fact, what I would say to that is that if we also become aware that the future may look different than the past, And because a lot of people struggle with that because they use their past, whether it's past success, whether it's past failure. We almost have to refresh every day, and we can rebirth. That's the beauty of one thing God can do. God, we look at the scriptures, the women in the Bible, the Rahabs, and God can, in a moment, change somebody's story, right? In a moment. So here's what I would say. Like, you could wake up tomorrow and become a new person. Like, totally. Like things you've not been able to do for 30 years or 20 years. Like in the moment, you could, God is able to shift that like that. And we have to be open to what he says, like, can you not hear it? I'm doing a new thing. You know, that I'm doing a new thing. Can you not? So there's something about being sensitive to the move of God and we responding to that move. And when God says new, he means it. But
Yeah.
sometimes he almost has to change people's names so they know that Abraham, Paul,
Yeah.
Saul, and in
Yeah.
their mind, they do that line in the sand, going forward, things are different. God knows that, but sometimes we need that name shift. And I've seen that for myself.
Yeah.
I've seen
Sometimes
that
we
for
need to be
myself.
shaken up and, and put on the path in a different way. And just
Yes.
like I say, I always, I pray often for God to drop an anvil because sometimes I can be dense. And if, I watch Joyce Meyer every morning. And one of the things that she says, if you don't, he likes to give you tests. And if you don't pass it the first time, you'll keep getting it until you do. He wants you to succeed. And so you'll keep getting the test until you do. And so sometimes I get the message several different ways and until it sometimes drops on my head.
Mm,
And I go, oh my gosh,
wow.
you've been trying to tell me this all along and I just haven't been getting it. And so clearing the clutter is sometimes the best way for me to go,
Yeah.
oh my God, I got
Yeah.
it.
There's also one exercise I do quite often, more than most people, is describing myself.
Mm.
Like, who have you become? Like, how would you describe yourself, or how would people describe? And I do it so often because even for me, I'm shifting so fast. The rate of transformation is moving so fast that even I have to catch up to that transformation. Like, who I was a year ago is different than who I am today. So how would I describe? And then I connect it to, okay, this was what I used to do that time. What is God having me do today? And to be honest with you, there are new things I'm doing today that people don't even know. Now I actually do a little bit of life coaching because as I'm talking to people about business, I'm seeing that a lot of the things that could be holding them back in business is actually life stuff.
It's life stuff. Yeah. And I see that all the time too. Anytime you get in a 20-minute conversation with somebody who's in need of something, then you realize what's really going on there has nothing to do with what they called you about or what they're
Yeah, and
talking
I
about.
had to call it a name. I didn't know what was happening with me because that's not what I set out to do. I set out to talk about business and trade
Yeah.
and yeah,
And then next thing
exactly.
you know, you're, yeah,
So
here you are.
yeah, and then I was like, okay, God, what is this? What does this mean? Are there more people out there that actually has this challenge that I could help? Okay, how do I put structure behind it? Because I'm always I may start out not knowing, it might be messy, but before I'm done, I put guardrails. Yeah, I put
When you're
guardrails.
trying to weave your
Yeah,
way toward it going, I'm not really sure, but I'm going to try this first and then be flexible to see how it goes from there. But
yeah,
yeah, these are all good bits of information. I wanted to finish up with work matters. I wrote it down. You
yeah.
mentioned that as a resource for me personally. I think we should share it with everybody else. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yes. So when I was in a corporate at the headquarters of Walmart in Bentonville, there was this amazing resource. It's a not-for-profit group. It's called Work Matters. And I even started volunteering. They were so amazing. I became one of their volunteers, right? And what they really do is they provide resources for workplace ministry in terms of corporate people and teaching them and equipping them to be able to bring their faith to work. And it's more of leveraging scriptures. They also have work studies like Love at Work, about the life
Huh?
of Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes. I led one work study on Esther. So it's bringing people, we actually hold Bible studies in the office, and you bring people together using their materials of the story of Esther. What if you have a boss that you don't align with? How do you pray yourself through? Have you prayed? Have you fasted? By the time you walk through this weeks of work, you have to apply it to your day job, which is what I see as a big challenge, that we, especially women in the workplace, we don't have enough resources from traditional churches to support our workplace engagement. In fact, one of the things we ended up even exploring, and it's now more structured since I left, we started what we called Christian Women in the Workplace. There were a group of women still having this conversation to say, we're in the workplace, we're leaders in the workplace, we're Christians, we cannot lead just as if we're not Christians. What would Christ have us do in the workplace?
Yes.
How
Right.
do we support each other?
So needed.
All the decisions you're making as a Christian leader in the workplace,
Mhm.
how do you communicate? How do you pray through it? How do you lead well in the
Mhm.
workplace? And these were resources that Work Matters provided. And then through that platform, I met other amazing leaders at C-level, all through the ranks, vice presidents, CEOs, CIOs, that were publicly declaring their faith and bringing their Bibles to work.
I love it. It's
Yeah,
so neat
so
because, as a leader, they have to make snap decisions. And how do you do that when if you don't have that place, that core of where to work from, and that it's known that that's where you work from,
mhm.
and create that sense of policy around that is just really tough to do. So I applaud that. I'm going to check it out, and I hope
Yeah. And
everybody
I
else.
have contacts if you want to get
Oh, yeah.
more into and
I'd love to
if you want to
know.
talk to
Yeah,
someone. Yeah,
I would.
amazing people. Yeah.
Perfect. Hey, maybe we can do an interview with them. That'd be awesome.
Yes,
I
yes,
love it.
absolutely. She's great. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Toyin. Well, I've learned tons. I feel like I know you better than I ever did before. I'm excited about what you're doing going forward. And we don't know what tomorrow will hold, so we don't know what you're going to be doing. But we do
Yeah,
know it will be impactful and good, and it'll come from a Christ-like place. And so
absolutely.
I'm excited. Thank you so much for
Oh,
joining.
thank you, my dear. And you also, I'll send you some information. I need to get you on my show. I also want to ask you and interview you, so that would be great.
Interesting stories there. We will,
Yes, awesome.
we'll do that. That'll be
Thank
terrific.
you so much. Bye.